How would you use mugwort? How would we work with mugwort? What are the virtues of mugwort, you asked? Okay, this is really fun. This is a really fun question for me because over the last year and a half or so, there's been this trend on TikTok, which I don't have a TikTok, but I became aware of it because all of a sudden these teenagers would start coming to the herb shop, and they come in and they're like teenagers, so they're like got their pajamas and their slippers on, and like hair's all messy and stuff, and they're just like walk into the shop like this, and just like looking at their phone, and they're like looking around. They're really confused at what they're like, what is this place, but I know I'm supposed to be here for one thing. And so they're looking and looking, and they're all shy. You guys need any help with anything? No, just looking. And finally they come back up to the counter, they bring the jar of mugwort, and they'd say, I'd like some mugwort, please. And after a few teens would do this, I was like, why, how come everybody's coming in with mugwort, like asking for mugwort? What's going on here? They're like, there's this on TikTok, we're learning about how mugwort is good for astral travel. And I'm like, oh, really? It's good for astral travel? Yeah, it actually makes you travel astral. And I'm like, oh, interesting. Okay, cool. And so I'm like, so how do you plan on consuming this? And they're like, I never thought of that. And so after a few of those, I started recognizing this type of person right away. And we have an endearing term for them. We call them mugheads. So they're like, oh, there's a mughead coming in. I know what they're doing. And then so we just kind of save them the trouble of be like, hey, you looking for bulk herbs? You looking for mugwort? Yeah, it's over here. We sell it. We have it. And then we start pre-bagging it by the ounce. It's already bagged up as an ounce. And then talking to them about it, because on TikTok, they're just like, take it for astral travel. But then at the shop, they have an herbalist that can be like, all right, let me tell you all about mugwort. And sometimes they'd be like, oh, that was really informative. And other times they'd be like, oh my gosh, when will this old person shut up? Because I could go on and on. Oh man. So I'd be like, okay, you ever tried smoking? And so if you break the ice with that, with the mugheads, they're like, oh, yeah, actually that's what I thought you. They're like kind of feigning like, oh, I wasn't gonna smoke it, but because I watched one of the TikToks, and they're like, there's this legal herb, it's called mugwort. And so there was like a little bit of like guilt or something with the mugheads. They would come in, they're like, I don't know, is there a code word, that kind of thing. So smoke it. In fact, mugwort is very often harvested, and then as it's like drying, it will be wrapped up into a smudge bundle, and you can light that on one end and burn it. And because mugwort is a great aromatic plant, it also has a connection with regaining your psychic space as a tool, as a wand, as a smudge stick. And so that's a great way. So let's start from the furthest, most astral version of mugwort and work our way into the body. Okay. So it's a great plant for dreaming, enhancing dreams. And how does that work? Well, the reductionist would say that, I should say the reductionist in me would say, well, I think that, because we have a 90-minute sleep cycle, that every 90 minutes we go and we get into REM sleep, or our dream sleep, at the very end of the cycle, and then we get back, and then it starts over again with alpha waves and blah, blah, blah. And by the end of that dream cycle, I think because our brain waves are really close to being in a wake state when they're in the dream state, and then it stops. I think that because mugwort is very stimulating to the mind, that actually wake up for a split second and enough that you remember your dream, and then you fall back asleep again. And so that's why you're like, oh yeah, it was like really remembering a lot of dreams. And the difference between that and not having mugwort at night would be like you dream, but you just don't wake up at the end of the dream, right? So you don't remember them as well. So I think that's one. The reductionist in me says that, but I also think that this is a very magical plant. It's named, it's botanically named after Artemis, the goddess of the hunt, who is sacred to the full moon. And the more masculine aspects of the divine feminine, or if you were looking at the yin yang symbol, it would be like the yin dot inside of, or it'd be the yang dot inside of the yin. That's what I think of mugwort kind of representing. It's like masculine within the feminine, the action principle within the receptive principle. And so for that, you could just put it into a little muslin cloth, put it under your pillow, and sleep on it. You know, you don't actually have to consume it at all. You could even draw it and dream about it. Like, I think that there's ways of communicating with plants that are so etheric and subtle that we can really channel them into our consciousness again, that the spiritual aspects beget the physical aspects. I really believe that. That's how I operate. That's part of my worldview. So anyway, if you want to skip ahead from the ethereal into the more physical aspects, you can make a tea. And so I would tell the kids, like, you can make a tea, but mugwort, while it's aromatic, it's also kind of bitter. So if you drink, are you used to drinking bitter plants? Do you know what a bitter plant tastes like? So sip it first and see if you can enjoy it. See if you can enjoy the aspects of it. Smell it. Don't just, put it in there and then because I don't know. I have some teenage nephews. They're just like, consume, they don't even give a second thought to it. So I'm like, all right, try to like really make it a medicine, where you're taking a sip, little bit at a time. Mugwort is a great plant for, you can also make a tincture, and you can also make oxymels with mugwort. And I've also made a hydrosol and essential oils with mugwort. I use mugwort in our incense. I use it in the cancer, estro aromatics for cancer. That is cancer sign, the sign of Cancer, which is ruled by the moon. Some say mugwort is ruled by Venus. Okay, then I'll also put it in Libra at the same as well, which is what I do. That's how I would use mugwort. You know what else I like mugwort in my garden? It grows like crazy. It takes over everywhere, but it also becomes a great habitat for the bunnies. I call them, because that's what my dog knows them as, bunnies. And there's another way for working with mugwort. When I see mugwort a lot, it's growing under bridges. So I think of it as kind of like a troll repellent. So there's a little gift for you. If you're working on the internet and you need to repel trolls, think about using some mugwort. Thinking about calling upon mugwort. Perhaps just put a little mugwort in your code or something like that. I don't know how the internet actually works. There you go. From one senior mughead on mugwort.